What a play by Noah Fafita.
The Servite boys, dem Servite boys, turn Wildcat boys, coming up with a big win in Salt Lake City on Saturday night, 23-10. Wildcats knock off the number 10 team in the country, and it didn't even get them back into the top 25. Apparently, not everyone was impressed with that win on Saturday night. We were impressed with it. We'll take it for sure. Arizona winning their first ever game in the Big 12 Conference, and now coming home for their first conference tilt in this new life of ours. It'll be this Saturday night at home at the stadium against the Texas Tech Red Raiders, old friends from long ago in the Border Conference and the WAC and all of those conferences prior to going to the Pac-12 or Pac-10 in 1970.
This is a super easy one. This is the battle over the saguaro, because if you don't know, Texas Tech in the last 3-4 years have been incorporating saguaros into much of their merchandise, and people are like, "Don't you guys know saguaros don't exist here?" But it's cool and it's a desert-looking thing, so we're going to do it. And it didn't matter before Tucson joined the conference. DK, now the home of saguaros is going to play against a team that's been using it as their logo. So I'm sure that's an easy rivalry, if you want to call it the saguaro battle.
What's their thing? Guns up or something of that nature?
Tortillas is their thing for basketball. Saguaros is their thing for logos.
There you go. All right. I think it's going to, I've said it before, I think it's going to be a great rivalry as we go through this thing between Texas Tech and Arizona, two cities that, are, I guess, comparable size. Tucson's probably maybe a tad larger than Lubbock, but two outposts where the communities really get into their schools. And I think that's going to be something that'll drive the rivalry in terms of these two teams. So looking forward to that coming up starting this Saturday. And it's a team we played recently, a few years back. We had some home and home, I believe, with them, or at least they came here. I don't remember if we went there or not. I know they came here, and I just remember a long touchdown run by Khalil Tate in that ball game when Texas Tech came here. I believe it was probably about 2000. I think it was the last year of, actually it was the first year of Sumlin. So that would have been 2018, I believe, when they came here, 2018 or 19, one of those years. And Khalil Tate had a nice big run on Texas Tech to beat the Red Raiders. All right, we got a lot to get to today. We want to hear from you. 520-848-1290. 520-848-1290 is the number to get in on the program. We will rehash everything that was the Arizona Wildcats win over the Utah Utes in Salt Lake City. I mean, that pass you heard at the top from Noah Fafita to Kean Burnett. I mean, where does that rate on the lexicon of great passes in Arizona Wildcats history? I mean, obviously it came in the first ever game in a new conference, not something late in the season that led to any type of championship. But, if this team goes deep into December or early January playing football, one we may look back upon as being a pass that turned around a season that was kind of floating on the edge there after a not so great offensive performance down in Manhattan, Kansas, just a few weeks ago. We heard from Brent Brennan today, some adjustments made on offense in terms of the collaboration in the booth up top between offensive coordinator Dino Babers and Matt Atkins, the tight end coach who runs the passing game, and some different duties in terms of how those two interact with each other. We'll hear from the head coach coming up on that as well. And, of course, we've got some baseball that we are paying attention to. Who'd have thought last time we talked to you in this format, we didn't really get a chance to talk a lot of Arizona Diamondbacks on Friday because we were out at Flowing Wells High School. We'll recap that a little bit as well as we go along here today. But who'd have thought we would be in this position right now, sitting here watching the second game of a doubleheader on the day after the end of the regular season to determine the fate of the Arizona Diamondbacks. But that is where we are. Game 2 of a doubleheader at Truist Bank Park in Atlanta between the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. The Mets rallying in dramatic fashion in game one, down 3-0 early, 3-0 in the eighth, scoring 6 runs in the eighth inning to take a 6-3 lead. The Braves coming back, scoring 4 runs in the bottom of the eighth inning to take a 7-6 lead. And then the Mets taking the lead again in the top of the ninth on a home run by Francisco Lindor. And then Edwin Diaz closing the door in the bottom of the ninth to put the Mets in the postseason, a team that started 0-5. You know, it was a funny thing posted on Awful Announcing from their 6th game of the season. They were 0-5. They were playing a home game. There was nobody in the ballpark. And Gary Cohen basically said, I don't know, but this feels like rock bottom. Well, that just goes to show you where we are in baseball. 6 games in, you never know what's going to happen over the course of a 162-game season in Major League Baseball. And the Mets have found their way in to the playoff, the hunt for October, as they like to call it. And now the Diamondbacks must hope that the Braves win this game. That the Mets win this second game as well, because that's the only way they can get in, is if the Mets sweep this doubleheader.
Yeah, 2 things really quick. The reason that 6th game had no fans in the stands, the Mets have the highest payroll in baseball. When you start out 0-5 and you've got the lowest payroll in baseball, people are just there to have some fun and watch some baseball. But the offseason expectations for that squad was much higher than starting 0-5. This doubleheader is so weird and dumb from a Diamondbacks perspective because whoever won that first game has no incentive to win the second game, and they need a sweep, because if people listening don't understand the situation, both these teams, the Mets and Braves, have the tiebreaker. They both won the season series over the Diamondbacks. So if they all tie in a virtual tie, then they will get the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks. They're in the playoffs. If one team wins both the games today, so obviously the Mets need to win this one, then the Diamondbacks are in. Otherwise, and guess what? The games start tomorrow?
Yeah.
So the amount of bullpen arms you're going to put out there to win this second game after winning the first one, you have no incentive. So basically, and all that being said, the Diamondbacks went 5-5 to end the season. 5-5 in their last 10 games to end the season. So really, it was that 8-run lead they had over the Brewers. You want to look back to a game, they would have been in the playoffs if they had just won one of those games, guys.
Not to mention the fact that, again, you're dealing with the situation where the Braves went into this game scratching Chris Sale from a start because they're potentially going to save him for the playoffs if they make it in today, which makes sense if you are guaranteed a playoff spot right now. And right now, I know that Torey Lovullo and the Diamondbacks at home are like Justin Herbert and the Chargers when they had that opportunity to potentially both get in, them and the Raiders, into the playoffs with a tie. Justin Herbert was caught on the sideline. I've never wanted a tie so bad in my life. This is a game where it can't end in a tie. It has to end in a sweep. And right now, if you're the Mets and you already had to do a comeback to win the first one, what energy are you going to have to potentially win this second game?
And the Mets just in the last inning had 2 on with no outs. Runners on first and second, and the Braves got out of that. So
it is 1-0 Atlanta in the bottom of the 5th inning. So the Mets have 4 more at bats, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. They've got 4 more at bats to rally. There have been only 3 hits in this ball game. It's almost like one of those end of the game seasons when everybody's up there just swinging to get it over with. That's what it looks like right now. The Braves win, and they are in, and the Diamondbacks season is over. So that is our question of the day today. This was an Arizona Diamondbacks team that was built for the postseason, but may not be playing in the postseason. So if they fail to do that, is this the end for Torey Lovullo? Should Torey Lovullo lose his job if the Diamondbacks do not make the postseason? Head on over right now to Twitter. You can vote in our poll. Wildcats Radio 1290 early on. 64% of you standing behind the manager. No. Torey Lovullo deserves 2025. He has been a great manager for this team. It was unfortunate down the stretch what happened, but he deserves another chance next season. 64% of you to 36% right now saying Torey should not be fired if the Diamondbacks do not make the postseason. And I stand with those 64%. I believe Torey should be back next season with the
I understand
D-backs.
expectations, but let me put some perspective on this. 1998 was their first season.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 6th most wins they've ever had in their franchise's history. So obviously missing out on the playoffs has to do with how good the teams are in your division, what the Padres clearly did to really push themselves into that spot. But yeah, 89 wins this year. Right now, if this game holds out, they're on the outside looking in. And it's also the 7th most wins they've ever had as a franchise in a season.
If you get that many wins consistently, I mean, Torey has been very good at keeping this team above 500 during his tenure as Diamondbacks manager. I think that goes to say something. It's not easy to be above 500 in baseball. I mean, that's a long season, and you're reliant on your starting pitching to do what it needs to do to get you those victories. And at this season, I think that's where most of the struggles started for the Diamondbacks. You got a lot of starting pitchers in that rotation for the Diamondbacks right now, have above 5 on their ERAs right now, besides your usual Zach Gallons. Cousin Merrill has had a pretty decent season this year. But again, Jordan Montgomery, that was kind of where everything started to kind of tail out for the Diamondbacks this season when it came to their rotation. And if the pitching had held up, we wouldn't be in this position. I mean, going into the weekend, if the pitching just holds up a couple of times, they're probably not even waiting to see if one of these teams makes it in the postseason.
Torey's been there since 2016.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's see, 69 wins in his first season, 93, 82, 85, 25 in the shortened COVID season, 52 in 2021, 74 in 2022, and then obviously last year's trip to the World Series, and this year 89 wins. This is the second most wins, 89, that he's had as a manager since 2016.
There you have it. Right now, the teams with the byes in the American League, the Yankees are the number 1 seed, followed by Cleveland. They will await to see what happens in the wild card round in the National League. It is the Philadelphia Phillies. They had the best record in baseball. The second best record in baseball at 95 wins. The Dodgers are the number 1 seed, followed by Philadelphia. Those will be the 2 teams that will wait to see what happens in the wild card round in the National League. Again, we are in the top half of the 6th inning now in Atlanta. The Braves leading the Mets by a score of 1-0. All right, we're going to talk some Arizona Wildcats football. Jordan Ham from Sports 360 AZ will join us. He was in Salt Lake City on Saturday for the upset, 23-10. We'll get Jordan's perspective on what he saw from the Wildcats in that monumental upset, the first top 10 win for Brent Brennan in his coaching career. Get Jordan's thoughts on that. Also, it was a pretty interesting weekend on the Olympic sports side at the University of Arizona. The volleyball team swept down in Texas, losing to a couple of ranked teams in Baylor and TCU. Got 1 set win at Baylor, did not get any set wins at TCU. So they're coming back with their first 2 losses of the season. Soccer split. They got a draw yesterday. Well, not a split, but a win and a draw. So by tally, that's 4 points, because you get 3 points for a win. So they get the draw with a ranked West Virginia team on Sunday, 1-1 in their first Big 12 home action of that program. So we have that. And as well, Lydia Russell. We had the Dave Murray Invitational on the cross-country side, the annual event. And Lydia Russell on the women's side came home the winner. She will join us coming up later in this hour. We'll talk to her, get her perspective on that and the win for the ladies. All right, that is what we've got coming up. We want to hear from you as well, 520-848-1290. Cricket, also a member of this show, as she always is, getting you home every 20 minutes on the 5s with your traffic and your weather.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center, it's Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together. Valencia, east of I-10 at Valencia in Littletown. Traffic signals malfunctioning. Backups for traffic on Grant Road, east of Country Club to east of Alvernon Way, travels down to 1 lane due to widening work. 105 tomorrow and around 102 the rest of the week, 104 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. On car insurance?